Alright, so listen, I think Microsoft has a lot of potential, and every day I see them becoming more like an Apple-esque company, which I'm excited for. They're making their own hardware now, and software that implements well with that hardware, kind of. Bottom line is, they have a long way to go, but I have faith in them. The Surface Pro was obviously a very successful lineup of tablets that is trying very hard and succeeding in most cases at replacing people's laptop, which is why I'm so very confused at this release of the Surface Book. The big question I have for the Surface Book is why? I'm trying to figure out what the target audience is and why they made it. Is it a laptop or is it a tablet? If it's a tablet, why would you make another tablet to compete with the 2 tablets you already have running right now? It's not very much different from those, other than the fact that it has an attachable big clunky keyboard. Oh, okay, wait. Maybe this is a laptop. It has book in there, right? MacBook, Surface Book. Their branding team was just like, that's how Apple did it. We'll do it too. Smart people. Go down that path. But if it is a laptop, why would they make a laptop after convincing everyone that a tablet can replace your laptop? Yeah, that doesn't work. So I don't know what this is exactly, so I'm not gonna compare it to an iPad because I don't really honestly think it's supposed to be a tablet, but it is. So you know what? I'm just gonna look at it as a product. I'm not gonna try to put a name on it. I'm just gonna think of it as a piece of technology that I'm reviewing. So at first, because I am an Apple sheep, I'm running into a few problems because when you're first presented to it, it feels most like a laptop because you gotta open it up. There's a test that all MacBooks, I'm pretty sure most MacBooks can pass. You should be able to open up with one finger because that's how a laptop should work, right? You put it there and you just lift it up. Okay, it's ready to use. With the Surface Book, that is impossible. It takes 2 hands just to open it up. You can't lift it with one, then it gets caught. So you have to use both your hands like a book. So that's not intuitive, and I find that kind of sloppy. So we're off to a bad start already. I got this awkward, clunky taste in my mouth just from doing that. And it's something I'm gonna do fairly often. You open up a laptop a lot. But anyway, let's just start actually using the thing. So the first thing that stood out to me is this new keyboard that's attached to a very heavy tablet. I can't pinpoint exactly why, but I do not like this keyboard. Maybe it's just the coloring scheme, but it reminds me of one of those fake demo plastic computers you get that are used to show people, look, this is how big the laptop is, but it's hollow. There's like nothing on the inside of that keyboard. If there is, it's not very heavy. This is an awkward laptop because the screen has all the weight and the keyboard has like no weight in it. So when you're using it, it feels fake. Not sure how they pulled that off, but that's what it feels like when you're typing. And I think the keys are plastic, but the body is aluminum, which is what the MacBooks do, so good job copying that. But it feels like you're bending it as you're resting your hands on it. And to me, the only word I can think of is fake. It feels fake. Like I don't have the actual product, I have some dummy version to show me what it looks like. So that's the keyboard. Moving on to the trackpad, this feels also pretty unsteady. And again, this is part of the problem that there's nothing really underneath it. When you're clicking it, it feels like the whole trackpad could break through down. It's not a solid piece of technology underneath you while you're using that. Whenever I click on it, it feels like it's about to break. Maybe I'm just used to MacBooks, but you have to click pretty hard to get that click, and when it clicks, it's awkward. Just tukun, tukun. The clicks are fairly louder than most laptops that I've used, so that also feels sloppy. Another thing I'm not a fan of is they're not really taking advantage of what a trackpad can do. There's not really any multi-touch gestures. You can click, you can scroll, and that's it. No desktop swiping between, notification management, which are all things you can do on an Apple trackpad. You added a trackpad to this thing, it should probably add some features, right? No, it's just there. But okay, I'll slow down. There are some benefits, which it is a PC, so shouldn't it all be about the specifications and the affordability? That's what I would think. That's how PCs have been. That's all anyone really cares about, right? They got the specs, they got the price, better than Apple. Okay, so with the starting price of $1,500, wait, 15? Really? Wow. Well, that's kind of high. You get the oddly placed resolution of 3000 by 2000, driving developers mad. There is no video that runs at 3000 by 2000, so when you're full screening stuff, a ton of pixels are not going to be used. Not sure why they picked that resolution. No one uses that. And 128 gigabytes of storage. Really? This is supposed to be like a $1,500 laptop. And the starting is 128 gigs? Oh, okay. 8 gigabytes of RAM. That's okay, yeah. And an Intel i5 core. Not really sure how many cores Microsoft didn't tell us, considering they make products that are supposed to be for the business, for the specs people, and then not tell us much about the core other than it's i5. Dual core? Quad core? What? Megahertz rating? Nothing? That's all we're gonna know. Okay, maybe the specs aren't the best, so let's kind of compare it to what a general MacBook goes for $1,500. What can you get out of a MacBook for $1,500? Looks like you get a dual core i5 processor, so that's the same, but at least we know for sure how many cores it has, and with a turbo boost up to 3.1 gigahertz. Thank you, Apple, for telling us the specifications, because Microsoft didn't want us to know that. It's just i5. That's all you need to know. All i5s are exactly the same, but whatever. And with a MacBook, you get twice the storage capacity at 256 gigs of storage. Thank you. That's more like it. 8 gigabytes of RAM, so that's the same. But on a MacBook, you also get a Force Touch trackpad that's capable of all the multi-touch gestures. I love that thing. There's so many things you can do with it. You feel like you're Iron Man. And the resolution isn't 3000 by 2000, but for like good reason, because no video is that. However, videos are 1080p, 2K, 4K, and the resolution of the 13-inch MacBook is 2560 something, but the bottom line is it's 227 pixels per inch. You're not gonna be able to see the difference between these two. So depending on what's important to you, you can argue which laptop is better for you, but the bottom line is pricing and specs are tied. You can't really say one has better specs than the other. It just kind of depends, but it's not an obvious winner. So look at this, the PC is no longer the affordable alternative. Now that Mac versus PC debate becomes a little more tricky, so let's compare the topped out models. If money's not an option, what can you get out of these two? Luckily, the two most expensive models of the Surface Book and MacBook Pro are tied at $3,200. Each share 1 terabyte of solid state, 16 gigs of RAM, and an Intel i7 core. We don't know about the core much on the Surface Pro other than its i7, but luckily Apple tells us that the i7 core has a turbo boost of 4.0 gigahertz and that it's a quad core. Thank you for being specific. Also with the MacBook Pro, we know that the dedicated GPU is 2 gigabytes. For graphics processing, there's 2 gigabytes solid. With the Surface Book, they say there's dedicated GPU. How much though? They didn't say. They just says there's dedicated GPU. That's all you need to know. How much graphics? Who cares? It exists. What if it's like 1 megabyte? They wouldn't tell you. Some Geekbench knows it out there. But it's just funny to me that Microsoft was kind of advertising towards the professionals and the business people, and yet not telling them things they probably would want to know, right? Why take away information? Come on. Also, with that $3,200 MacBook Pro, you get a 15-inch screen, whereas the Surface Pro, no matter what configuration you get, it's 13.5 inches. So here's what confuses me. Across the board with specs and costs, we have a tie between the MacBook Pro and the Microsoft laptop. They vaguely are tied when it comes to costs and specs, but the Surface Book has the advantage of being able to take the screen off. Is that really an advantage though? And the digital keyboard, when you bring it up, is not edge to edge of the screen. It's tinier. It also doesn't pop up when you touch the text box like an iPad should, because when you want to type something and you tap there, the keyboard comes up. It doesn't do that on the Surface Book. Maybe mine was broken or something, but obviously it's just expecting you to use the physical keyboard anyway. So the touchscreen is there. That MacBook Pro doesn't have that, but it's a laptop. You only have 2 hands. One hand's on the keyboard, one's on the trackpad. Are you really going to be reaching up and touching the screen a lot? I hope not, because it wobbles like crazy. Don't do that. Whenever you're tapping, it's going to be shaking crazy. So let's say you're anti-Apple and you love Windows 10. I guess those people are out there. And you want a good tablet, but you also like a physical keyboard. Then why don't you just get the much cheaper Microsoft Surface Pro 4? That's way cheaper and has better specs in some instances, and you can get a physical keyboard with that. In fact, there are a few configurations of the Surface Pro 4 that are $1,500 and the specs are better than the Surface Book. Why don't you just get that if that's who you are? And if you want those high-end specs for the topped out Surface Book model, aside from the GPU, you can have all of that for $500 cheaper. A terabyte solid state, 16 gigs of RAM, Intel i7 core. Only thing you're missing out on is a graphics processing unit. Again, that we don't know how much it is, but just adding that dedicated GPU is an extra $500, and you get a crappy keyboard attachment to it. So why does the Surface Book exist? What's the audience exactly? You have to be someone who can't settle enough for an i7 core and 16 gigs of RAM. You need that GPU. You want that power, but you also want it to be a tablet that you can draw on. Okay. Oddly specific audience, Microsoft. Obviously, you know what? You can just buy what you want. Unless you're that very rare customer and you have to have Windows 10, just get the Surface Pro 4. Way cheaper, save you a lot. Why does this exist? I don't get it. Anyway, comment what you think down below. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you in the next one.